Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the UBC Learning Circle. The UBC Learning Circle is based out of the Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health, and we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. The UBC Learning Circle is generously funded by the First Nations Health Authority. I want to tell you a little bit more about us. The UBCLC Learning Circle is a program featuring workshops on First Nations physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional health and wellness, and prioritizes First Nations knowledge sharing amongst health professionals, community members, elders, students, and youth. My name is Aurelia Kinslow. Welcome, everyone. I'm the facilitator and education coordinator for the UBC Learning Circle, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Education at UBC. My background is Cherokee, Choctaw, African American, and Scandinavian. Joining us today are guests, Chief Phil Lane Jr. and Corinne Stone. Chief Phil Lane Jr. is a traditionally recognized hereditary chief and elder, Ihangtowan, Dakota, and Chickasaw nations. Corinne Stone is a member of the Chilcotin Anaheim Band from the Williams Lake Band. This session is part 2 of a session we held on November 9th. Are some of you joining us again? Can you give us a yes or a shout out if you're returnees from last time? Because we had a great session and people were really excited and wanted you guys back. So this session, again, is part 2. Corinne Stone was here with us, and she took us on a spiritual journey in which we considered this unique and unprecedented moment in human history and the restlessness and uncertainty that characterizes it. Part of what we discussed was rootlessness and ways that we can reclaim our Indigenous relationship to all life by celebrating our sacred relationship with the earth. By popular demand, we will discuss the 16 principles with Corinne Stone that Corinne Stone presented that day, and we'll go into more detail today. Yes, some people are returning. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. Pass the floor on to you. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome.
Abinanas, my name again is Corinne Stone. My spiritual name is Blue Sage Woman. Grateful to be back again and to be with someone that I have always learned from and inspired me to do what I do today. Today I work in the Mission Medium Institution out in Mission, and I'm grateful to be here. I've worked in many fields, and I'm grateful to be talking about this very sacred discussion that we're going to have today. I'd like to ask Phil to introduce himself and to sing us a song to start us out.
Great. Well, Mitaki Epi, it's really wonderful to be here with my dear sister Corinne, and I think I called you Toja last time I was here.
Toja? No, you can call me Toja.
Well, I will tonight.
Thank you.
Part of our Dakota culture is that the highest thing we can do is be a good relative.
Thank you.
And I was always taught we should not rest until we make everybody we know a brother, sister, mother, father, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, grandma, grandpa, grandson, granddaughter. And so when we do that, we always want to make relatives. And so I always like to make relatives. My dad always used to do that. He'd walk in, he'd always say, my friend or my relative. And so Mitaki Epi, my beloved relatives, I really want to give Thanksgiving to be here today. For those that were here before, as you know, I was trying to get onto this system, and I tried for about an hour. I was in California. And so I said, for sure, I want to get here personally, and I'm really so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
I'd like to sing a song that was passed on to me by George Wellwood Soldier. George is a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe, a great man, and he served in Vietnam, came back, had been wounded, and had been a medic there, only taking care of those people who were injured and hurt. And he passed this song on to me back in 1975. I'm mentioning George because so many of my generation have gone on. And George Wellwood Soldier and his family have been such a blessing to me over the years, and he passed on here in the spiritual world here 2 years ago. So when I sing this song that George passed on to me, I want to remember him and all those beloved ones who have passed on. But I love the words of the song. It says, Wayanki, it says, behold, it calls upon the powers of the Creator, our ancestors, to behold. And then it's speaking about the sacred pipe. Chinupa Kile Wakaelo. It says the pipe is the most holy of holies. Behold this. But really what it's saying, because everything that we dressed in, colors, designs, had deep meanings to them. And the sacred pipe, just like the sacred things here of the incredible Salish people whose land we're sitting on, the Musqueam First Nation, have their beautiful, beautiful expressions of these high spiritual teachings. So what it's saying is behold, the sacred pipe is holy, but what it's saying is the bowl, which represents the mineral people, the earth, water, that's sacred. The stem, which represents the plant people, power of growth, all those plant people are sacred. And then with every sacred pipe, there's always something represent the animal people. And so, of course, they have the power of the senses. And then you take the bowl and the pipe and put it together. Of course, that's the fusion of the female-male principle for just one expression of it, this way. So then you have life. Because if you turn the bowl up this way, here's the bowl, and that is the mouth, and that's the human being standing there. So when you use this, it's like you're praying with your soul. One meaning. There's infinite meaning, just like anything spiritual. So this song says, Wayankie, Chinupa Kile, Wakayalo, Wayankie. So it says, behold, the sacred pipe is holy, of holies. But what it's really saying here is the mineral, the plant, the animal, the human, we're all, everything's sacred. So I'm going to sing that here again. And again, thank you, sister. We might have a good visit. Oh, hey. So today we're going to be sharing the 16 principles, and I want to give you a little history on this. Back in 1982, we were really facing some tremendous challenges, as we are today, but these have changed over the years. But at that time, we were really facing tremendous levels of alcoholism in our communities. As you know, one of the great examples we have was given us by the late Andy Chelsea and Phyllis and the whole community of Alkali Lake, was the story of Alkali Lake, which was made in 1985. And it told the story of a community here in British Columbia that went from complete alcoholism to almost complete sobriety. And of course, when we saw that example, we realized it was possible to emerge from those things which were destroying our communities and our relatives. And so we were able to get the funding from the National Native Alcohol and Drug Abuse Program to do that work there at Alkali Lake. But that really emerged from a gathering we had between Christmas and New Year's 1982, where we brought together 40 elders and spiritual leaders. And we spent 4 days and 4 nights together in high plains of Alberta, Lethbridge, Alberta, and the final ceremony, all-night ceremony, was held on the Blood Tribe First Nation. And really it was there that the elders, when we really distilled what they all had to say, because each one came from a little bit different cultural, spiritual perspective, spoke from different languages, and yet they were all found that we have a common spiritual foundation, common spiritual principles that have guided us, because our primary teacher of all of us, from whence we came, whence we return, is our Mother Earth. And so all these natural laws have to be in harmony with all the interrelationship of all relationships of all life. And so what they told us in essence was this: this universe we live in is organized according to certain natural laws. These physical and spiritual laws are inseparably connected. The physical laws are easy to understand. If you drive a car 100 miles an hour into a concrete wall, you're going to get a little smashed up. You drink a glass of arsenic or whatever, and you're going to get a big stomachache. If you jump off a 10-story building on your head, you're going to get a headache. Get smashed up a little bit. These are the physical laws, but just as real, and in fact inseparably connected, and each impact the other. Because if I don't treat my physical being and I don't walk in a good way and so forth and so on, that is also going to impact me in every dimension. Spiritually, if I'm dishonest, spiritually, if I don't respect others and I'm selfish, that also will have an impact on my physical dimension of myself. And so what they said was, we're going to share with you these natural laws, and if you follow these natural laws, if you become these natural laws, and you practice them and understand them, and when you run into difficulties, go back and look at these guiding principles, these natural laws, you can get back on track. And so we're going to further explore the wonderful presentation made by Sister Corinne. She took you through these so that we can then take a look and see how these can be utilized for rebuilding our incredible First Nations, our Indigenous people. And not only that, but the prophecies to say that our healing will also help heal the entire human family. Because we know the hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. So, Sister, any thoughts on those natural laws that you might have to think about?
When I first met Phil, and I think I shared a little bit about it last time, was in 1992, and again, I was working down in the downtown east side, and we had major alcohol and drug issues in the downtown east side, and they brought 80 of us together from around the province, and Urban, I think, was called at the time, and they trained us in the healing arts based on these 16 principles. How are we going to develop our programs, our services, our communities? And so since then, I've used these principles in all the work that I've done in helping. Today we have back then it was alcohol, now it's drugs. And, I was just listening on the radio on the way here, there's 300 of our relatives that have overdosed, which is an epidemic to me in our communities. I lost my son, I shared with you last time, in 2015, the first one for fentanyl crisis. So I really, really love these principles.
Great. So the first one is that human beings can transform their world or worlds. This is the key to the whole thing. If we do not believe in ourselves, and for some of us in a higher power, that we can change the conditions in which we live and are surrounded and surround our relatives, then the game's over. So we've got to go beyond the attitude that life is one disaster after another, followed by death. Then you die and go to hell and burn forever. Life is just one opportunity after another to grow and develop. So that attitude that we can through humility, through prayer, through our ceremonies, we can and we have and are changing the world. And I think we saw that demonstrated so beautifully what happened at Standing Rock and how that impacted and helped arise. But this has been going on for so long. And yet now, today, at this time of great, great global crisis, we're really beginning to be able to have what we've been sharing. For myself, it's been 50 years, and I know for Corinne, so many years, and so many of those elders have gone before us that did this same thing for many more years. Finally, after all this time, humanity is beginning to listen to the wisdom of the Indigenous peoples of the Americas and around the world. So, human beings can transform their world. Any comment?
When I think about out of those 80 in 1994, we graduated by facilitating a international conference at the coast in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I think about all of the relatives that I met back there, the ones that are still here today. I still have a relationship. They became family. And any of the work that I've done in the communities, we've brought them in and they help. So I think about that importance of relationships, that we need to be able to adopt healthy relationships in our communities. And with that, it grows our families in our community.
The second principle that was given at that first elders meeting was development comes from within. Others may help and assist, but it must emerge from ourselves, our families, our communities, and so forth. That we can't come into a community, we can't come into a family and try to impose authoritarily our perspective. In fact, I love this one principle. It's not here, but it's one I also kind of fits to here. It says, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. So it's so important that we really, really, really listen to each community, but also to each member of that community, because each one has their perspective, and if we really seek to understand before seeking to be understood, then we can respond to what that is. But unless we know that, we can't. So this is really key, and this is what I think that happens when governments, whether it be the government of British Columbia, whether it be our own First Nations, whether it be our own nation states around the world, or whoever, that they have to be able to understand that we have to go and have the community participate in whatever it is we're developing.
Personally, the development, when 1992, I had just come out of treatment. I was just started to Sundance. Just got clean and sober. I was two years clean and sober by then. And I really needed to look at sexual abuse. That was, I had 15 sexual abusers. And so I had to do a lot of healing, and the healing arts, that development. I remember going over to, we were developing a transition house for battered women in Vancouver, helping Spirit Lodge, and went over to, and I heard a elder that came out of Oka, and he was talking to the people, and this woman was asking him, I don't know how to work with this woman. She's on the floor in a fetal position, and he said, you only can go take people as far as you've gone. And so for all the frontline workers out there, we need to do that internal healing up on the mountain, praying in the sweat lodge, using our traditional healing techniques. But we also learned a lot more from all four directions, different healing arts around the world, and they're really helpful.
Yes. In fact, you got right into the healing is a necessary part of development. I think you've taken care of that principle very, very well. Please. Oh, I'm learning how to use this up. Back one. Okay. No vision, no
Guess
development.
one. This one.
Justice. I'm getting a chance to learn all these things. Thank you for taking care of me here. I don't know what I would do with all this new technology. Wow. Okay. All right. Justice. Every human being, all life, needs to be treated with justice. Because justice is going to be and is the foundation of where we're going. And so having this sense of justice in everything we do is one of those principles that's absolutely necessary for our growth and development individually and as communities. Sister?
Reminds me of, Bill would share the most sacred ceremony of all ceremonies is the birth of a child, that we're all sacred. And that's what, I work inside the institution with a lot of our young men, and they're young, under 30, just from 20 to 30. It's like 40 to 60% of our young men that are in jail. And I tell them that. I tell them they're sacred. They made a mistake. They're paying for their mistake now. I think it's really important that they take accountability, be responsible for what they did and learn from it.
Great. No vision, no development. Developing individuals, communities need a vision of possibility. No vision, no development. There's a saying I really love from our Dakota teaching. It says, when the young people stop singing the old songs and there are no more dreams and visions of greatness, there is no more power. So as your vision is, so shall your power be. So as your faith is, so shall your success be. I want to share my perspective on this vision part. We talk about curriculum, and we do have a lot of curriculum here at UBC and so forth, but really the greatest curriculum in our children's life is ourselves. We are the curriculum. We have more impact than books, videos, or whatever in the lives of the people around us. So we'll get to that at the very conclusion of these principles about how important our examples, our role modeling is.
One of the first things we had to do back in 1992 was do a vision statement. And I picked 4, and one of them was to become a sun dancer, and I did. I've been sun dancing now for 27 years. And one of them was to get my name, because the elders said without my spiritual name, I would be lost. And so my name is Blue Sage Woman, and I've carried that name. It means the sage the spirits use when they come down on earth. The other one was to get my degree, and it took me a long time. In 2015, I received my master's in business administration and Aboriginal leadership. So I needed to work towards those things, and it was very important to have that vision.
It's interesting you were talking about names. I think these are something so important that we have within our Indigenous cultures, and cultures around the world may have very similar ways, but of course for our Dakota people, many times you were given a childhood name. My dad called me Duggo. Now what Duggo meant, it had no meaning. That was kind of my childhood name, Duggo. But then when I was 12, I went up on the Standing Rock where my father was born, went up to see my grandfather, Chantewashte Strongheart, Walter Strongheart, World War I veteran. He had one of his eyes were gassed. He went up on horseback. A long story, but I'll just bring it to the end. So after offerings and this and that, he gave me his father's name, which is Shunkmanu. Shunkmanu, in its short form, means horse thief. And in long form, it means a leader of warriors who takes the enemy's best horses. And so I did not understand why in the world at 12 years old he gave me that name, horse thief. And it was I realized that the great honor of the name, but I didn't really understand it. And I went up to fast at Bear Butte, right on that corner, special place up there. And I really wanted to pray about that name. And it came to me that, when I've gone through my life, you can see me as I sit here. Of course, when I'm getting old here, it's a lot different than I had when I was young and about 4 inches taller with black hair and all that stuff. But you shrink. This comes with the dinner of life. Anyway, so I'd go around and people, unless they knew my family and my mother and father's family, or knew my family, they'd see me and they thought I was Italian, or they thought I was Jewish. And when I went to Spain, they thought I was Spanish. And when I went to Israel, they thought I was Palestinian and Jewish. And so, you know something? When I fasted, I realized I've been a good horse thief. I can slip right into that and get their best horses and be gone before you know it. But I've completely left behind that stealing people's horses. I might get some good knowledge. In fact, I want to say this. It's so important to me, Dr. Yuppie. For myself, it's so important that we seek the light from whatever lamp it shines from, and don't get hung up in the lampshade. That's the light we're after. And every single human being we meet, everybody, knows something we don't know. It has something to share with us. I don't care where we are. Very important. So, no vision, no development. Now, what we've done here is during our research beginning back in 1982, we went through and had interviews with many communities across Canada and the United States to find out what really constitutes for Indigenous people determinants of health. What really makes a community healthy? What are those things that have to be achieved? Now, I'm not going to go through every one of these, but no, because they themselves are a whole workshop. But it's very interesting when you compare this to what you find determinants of health in other populations around the world. Of course, obviously, people want to see their basic physical needs met. I mean, that's right down there. Because if you can't eat, and you don't have water to drink, it's pretty challenging to learn. But it's interesting, as we went across in all these communities, all these different communities that spoke different languages and so forth, they all prioritized the second determinant of health for them was spirituality and a sense of purpose. It wasn't materialistic, taking care of my physical needs. It was our community saying, physical needs we take care of, we also need to take care of our spiritual needs.
Think about it. When I work in the prison and our brothers come in the prison, of course, in our institutions, they have all these physical needs met. But they come in and sometimes it's the first time they're learning about their spirituality and their culture. And it's so important to them when I talk to them and I sit with them and we do ceremony together. That's what gives them that hope, that wanting to go on. Because a lot of them have given up.
And as we go through that, we can also see life-sustaining values, morals, and ethics, safety and security. I'm not going to go through all these, but we defined 14 of these: adequate power, social justice and equality, cultural integrity and identity, community solidarity and social support, strong families and healthy child development, healthy ecosystems, sustainable relationships between human beings and the natural world. Now, excuse me the way I'm reading because I had a cataract operation. I'm not trying to get into my whole deal here, but I did have a cataract operation. It's really hard to see. So, Corinne, but it's good to be with you. No, wait. No. Anyway, so we go on. There's this. So, and finally, of course, critical learning opportunities, adequate human service and social safety net, and meaningful work. and service to others. These is what our communities have told us are our determinants of health. If anyone wants to have a copy of this PowerPoint, I'll be happy to share this with you. At 73, you realize your journeys, you go infancy, childhood, adulthood, and you get over here. Not like I'm not saying you're their sister, but
It's like great fun.
yeah, no, yeah, it is. You go clear around this circle, and all of a sudden you're here, and you realize there's the door. That's the door out. Like my dad said, he said, none of us are going to get out of here alive, But at the same time, you can see the whole deal. Oh, infancy, oh, childhood, oh. And then you see, oh. Then you look at this thing, and think all of a sudden, here we are. It's just like a breath of a buffalo on a cold day. Or a firefly on a warm summer night. With the shadows vanishing before the sun. That, Itakiapi, is how quickly life passes. And here we are. How many years ago we were at the Coast Plaza, that big thing? That was so, how many years?
1994.
94.
Yeah.
What is it? No. 2018, yeah. That's always fun. Okay, have you got the slides checked? Okay, you want to speak to this one? Thank you. Good.
Authentic development is culturally based. I like what Phil said in the beginning of our training. He said that we cannot develop or use culture like salt and pepper. It has to be complete, holistic development. Whether we're developing curriculum, whether we're developing programs, whether we're developing communities, whether we're developing ourselves. We can't just, go to the sweat lodge and not do all the other work that we have to do. I had to do a lot of, before the sweat lodge, I had to go up on that mountain. I went up on Bear Butte too, and do that inner work, the emoting, crying, grief, the grief work that I needed to do. So our culture is such a beautiful thing. We have so many different ways that we healed.
Yes, and I think it's so important to realize that the cultural dimension of our lives, the cultural dimension of our communities, defines how we parent, defines how we look at education, defines how we look at economics, interaction with others, family development, all those things that we have here in this slide. So culture and understanding our unique cultures, at the same time being able to have the awareness and understanding of others' cultural contexts or reflections is so important for having good human relationships. And that does not mean that everybody's the same. Even you'll find, if you travel to our First Nation, of which all the relatives are related or have been there all together for a long time, there'll be within that community little bit differences of how they look at various cultural things. And that's just natural, because when we look at culture, and especially its relationship to spirituality, it goes on forever. Culture is always dynamic, growing, changing, and yet the foundation, which are the spiritual principles and guiding principles we're looking at, are always at the foundation. So how we may practice something culturally today may be a little bit different in the past, but the spiritual intention and meaning is essentially the same as those that have gone before us.
I remember we were developing it was an employment program, and we had a guest speaker. Some of you may know Dr. Richard Atleo. And we were talking about culture, but we were talking about traditions, and people were saying, that isn't our way. The medicine wheel or the smudge is not our way. And what he said is, that our tradition was always changing. We were always in development. And if we learned a new thing that worked better, we used it. That's how we survived. We adapted to our environment. And I think that was really important in our
yes.
cultural development.
Yes. And I think of I go back to my grandmother Ella Deloria, and who wrote the first dictionary that had both the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota dialects, and really her work now is a foundation of a lot of language recovery going on back in Chetishoko. But she always would point out the highest duty we had as a Dakota was to be a good relative. Now, when you really reflect on that, especially with our understanding of the interconnectedness of all life, which was one of the principles the elders shared with us in this long process we went through, then we realized to be a good relative is not just being a good relative here. It's being a good relative to all life. All life. A good relative to the animal people, the plant people, those that fly. And so we respect, it's a respect of all these relatives. You know, our relative the salmon, our relative the buffalo, our relative the bear. And so being a good relative is way more than just being a good relative to the close relatives. As well, for the Dakota people, one of the things that we really treasured was a ceremony called Hunka. Hunka means making relatives, and we always like to make relatives. And those Hunka relatives are those relatives, and you're a Hunkas relative. We've known each other, and I try to seek that out. That means that we share together a spiritual feeling, a love, a compassion, experiences. And sometimes these Hunka relatives we have are even closer than our blood relatives. Because our blood relatives, we have no choice really in that. I mean, it's great because they help us really grow. I'm sure I've given my relatives the most growth of all. But, so we had both. So we do make spiritual relatives. And we find that in our communities. And so when I go around, somebody told me, said, my gosh, Phil, I just how big a family do you have? It seems like you have about 50 nieces and nephews. And it's true. It's better that way. So everything's interrelated. And we cannot understand anything unless we understand how it's related to things others. And that's why without this understanding, science has gone on without having the spiritual dimension and has done things that have really damaged and hurt us because they don't have the values. At the same time, we may have a spiritual perspective, but if we don't have reason, it becomes fanaticism. At the same time, if science without spirituality becomes a Frankenstein. And so it's so important to understand that anything we do impacts everything around us.
Going back, it talks about when I healed myself, my family heals, my children heal, my community. I brought my healing back to my community. I don't need to, like Phil said, lecture, or I try not to. I have an auntie and a mom though. But it also heals Mother Earth. The more that we heal within, and that connection will automatically, go out. Like when you throw a rock in the water and all of those rings that go around. That's how when we do something, it affects everyone around us.
And this interrelatedness, I think, is really beautifully illustrated in this slide, where you have, of course, the mineral people. The mineral people have a power. It's a power of cohesion. In fact, we think of our bones, so is literally the mineral people. They give us you might say the foundation. But from the mineral people, then come the plant people. They have the spirit and power of unity, but they also have the power of growth. And then you have the animal people. The animal people, just like ourselves, need water, need all the minerals and so forth that make up their physical bodies. They have the spirit and power of growth. There's an interrelationship also with the plant animals and humans, where our plant relatives breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. We breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. So we have these beautiful relationships with all the different mineral, plant, animal relatives. And then we ourselves, we have the mineral, we have the spirit and power of growth of the plant people, we have the senses of the animal people, but we also have another dimension to us, a dimension to us that allows us to go beyond time and space, that allows us to be aware that we're aware, and that we can change the way of our behaviors. Our relatives, let's say the bear, they also have adaptation, but they have a very clear role and very clear lessons they teach each and every day we can observe. So everything's related to everything else.
I think you covered that good.
I covered it, okay, all right, good. It's all right now.
No unity, no development. And I think about as we were developing. In the beginning of development, there's always a lot of sometimes chaos, and you go through rough periods. Everybody's not together. So it's really important, I think, to come together as a team. We cannot heal even with ourselves. I've always thought about, part of my healing has been Alcoholics Anonymous. It's very, it brings a whole bunch of people together that with a common goal,
Yes.
to get sober or to get clean. And without each other, we wouldn't be able to do that. So I think you need to have that unity. Not only if you're developing a program or an organization or a service, you need to have that unity with the board, with the staff, with each other, and support each other, or there is no development.
Yes. And by the way, we're not saying that unity means we all have to be identically the same. We're saying unity in diversity. That really diversity, the uniqueness of us all, is so important. And there's another teaching I really like. It says, the clash of differing opinions with love ignites the fire of truth. So it's natural, you start a fire, there's kind of the old way, the friction, even when you light a match, or you light even a lighter. And so that has a purpose. But as long as we're able to share that in a loving, kind manner, and respectful manner with one another, we can maintain that unity and diversity. Any thoughts?
No, that's good.
Of course, this one is being debated everywhere on Mother Earth. We've got 7.6 billion human beings now, of which 80%, by the way, 80% of the human population today is living in poverty in terms of compared to where we're experiencing here, and as well here in Canada. I mean, when you compare the conditions on First Nations reserves, Métis communities, Inuit communities in the north, our statistics are right there with many of those relatives of other countries who've really gone through the incredible colonization process we've gone through. So it's so important that we really make sure that everyone participates. No participation, no development.
I think about it as we all have a voice, and it's important for us to use that voice. Sometimes in the beginning of when I first found my voice, because I used to be very quiet, my voice when I first came out was of anger. But I think it's really important that you speak, share how you feel, what you want. So it's important, in our communities when we have our meetings and that, to speak up. When we have our elections, to speak up, and to make even within our Canada, that we need to be able to show up and share what we see.
And I'm just gonna, again, my cataracts, but so I'm not gonna go through every one of these, but when we do consult, the principles of consultation is when we need to address issues. Now, talking circles, of course, when we're dealing with feelings and we want to share with one another, get to know each other, do healing. But principle consultation is when we want to resolve issues, when we want to find new solutions. But still, in these principle consultation, respect each participant and appreciate each diversity and others' diversity. This is the prime requisite for consultation. Prime requisite. Respect each, participate, and appreciate each other's diversity. Now there's a total of 10 of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just, I like this one. Once stated, let go of opinions. Don't try to defend your position, but rather let it go. Ownership causes disharmony among the team and always gets in the way of finding the truth. Contribute to maintaining a friendly atmosphere by speaking with courtesy, dignity, care, and moderation. This will promote unity and oneness. So these then are principles that we drew from meeting with the elders over many years that we found really help us to come together in a good way and resolve the issues that we were facing as individuals and as communities. Sister?
I think about the last one there that says seek consensus. When I first learned what our traditional consensus was, it didn't mean that, again, that everybody agreed. It means that they would go with everybody would have a voice, and that they would go with the majority, but the minority would support and do everything in order to have that come about. And if it didn't work out, then they would go with the next, and then everybody would support.
Exactly. Because in the current partisan politics, which I think we're getting a good dose of every day. Any further than that. But what happens is that if one party comes with a good idea, then the other party, because they didn't come up with it, even though it's a good idea, they fight it. And so the idea, of course, in our communities was we talk with each other, we pray and we consult, and then we come to a place where we have the large majority or whatever wanting to move this way, and that's where we're going to move. And of course, it makes sense that if everybody comes together in unity and does the best they can to achieve that goal, to achieve it, if there's something not quite right, in unity we'll find it. But if we're not in unity, we won't know if it's not working because somebody's trying to undermine it, or if it was a bad idea. And so that's what's happening so many times. Our communities make decisions, and there's some that don't agree, so they do everything they can to undermine the others because they say, oh, this is wrong. And what happens, we get confused. We don't know whether it was a bad idea or it's because of the disunity. And I would say the greatest issue we're facing as Indigenous people around the world that's come out of colonization is disunity. Disunity. Backbiting, gossip, all those things which destroy the soul of ourselves and our communities. So the hurt of one is the hurt of all. And the honor of one is the honor of all. This is key when we understand the oneness of all life. When we realize we're one human family, then we understand that if I am hurtful to my relative, if I'm hurtful, it's hurting all, including myself. Very important.
I think about it as It's probably 1995. I think I went over to a conference in Saskatchewan with Jane Milton Moss. It's the first time that I'd heard a word put on what was happening for me as lateral violence. And I think that's what hurts us more than ever today. You know, even to our own relatives, you know, I was called half-breed, I was called Bill C-31, all of these words. And we have to stop doing that to ourselves and to our brothers and sisters, our families, is to stop that gossip and rumor. And
Yes. You know, when I was at in Hobima in 1978, I was invited to a very, very special ceremony they were having there. And an elder had cancer they couldn't remove. And they brought up this Navajo elder who had done many, many, many years of healing cancer. It was an all-night ceremony, and the doctors had given her up for you know, she was going to die. And during that night, I saw that elder. Of course, there was a whole circle of us there praying, and I saw that Navajo healer literally suck that cancer out. Took all night long, and so the next morning they put her to bed and so forth, and she was up doing dishes by the next day, and she was up doing housework, and cancer was gone. And so this good brother of mine, Sam Wendy Boy, we were together, and Sam said, let's go ask the elder, what is bad medicine? You know, we hear black magic, bad medicine. What is it? And so we went, offered some tobacco to him, and we were singing, it was after the ceremony. And he said, boys, he said, I've been doing this pitiful work for over 40 years now, and I've found there's 4 kinds of bad medicine. We were waiting to hear what that was. Of course, people, I mean, what was it, putting pins in dolls, or what was it? He said, the first bad medicine is bad thoughts. If you have bad thoughts about yourself or others, you're using bad medicine. A second bad medicine may be the worst of the worst. Maybe even worse than physically killing somebody, in a way, is backbiting and gossip. Because backbiting and gossip destroy the soul of a person. And he says it's not just the backbiting and gossip, it's loving to listen to it. So you may not be the one backbiting and gossiping. Oh yeah, oh honestly. We can encourage it. But it's something that it is a killer to our own souls and the souls of others. And so I think that as we move beyond it, we're going to be a lot better off. And finally, he said, then the third kind of bad medicine was dirty looks. I don't know if you've ever run into that before.
Yeah.
And the fourth kind are just simply bad words to people. Those are the 4 kinds of bad medicine, simple. And that really, really helped me to understand more about how we need to be.
spirit. I always love when Bill first taught us about this. He told us a story about Grandmother Mouse. And when the Creator wanted to give a very special gift to all the human beings, he called all the animals together and asked them, I want to give this special gift, which is the gift of spirituality and seeking the truth. I want to know where to hide it, where only those that are seeking the truth and are going to help others are going to find it. And so he went to the buffalo, and the buffalo said, well, give it to me and I'll hide it in the deepest grass in the prairie, and they won't find it. He goes, no, one day the Creator said, well, they'll toe the grass in the prairie and they'll find it. And the bear said, well, give it to me, I'll hide it in the deepest cave in the earth. And the Creator said, no, one day they're going to mine for the minerals in the earth and they'll find it. And the eagle said, well, give it to me and I'll fly it to the highest place in the sky. And the Creator said, no, one day they're going to fly into the sky and they'll find it. So Grandmother Mouse stood up in her little shawl and she said, Creator, I know where you can hide it, where only those that are seeking the truth and are going to help others will find it, inside. And so our elders say that our longest journey is from our mind to our heart, and then the journey of growth and development back to our mind.
Beautiful.
I love that story.
Beautiful. And I think that this speaks for itself, that we are spiritual beings as well as physical beings. In fact, really, the spiritual nature of ourselves, this part of ourselves, that our souls, I guess we could call it. We have different words in different native languages for this. But if we think about it, I asked this one elder, I said, how do we know we have a soul? How do we know that? He said, well, there's many ways to know we have a soul. But one of the ways is when we go to sleep at night. He said, not all dreams are sacred dreams. I mean, they're all teaching us something, but some may be caused because we ate too much pizza the night before, or fried bread, or whatever. But he said, think about this. When we go to sleep, we die from this physical world. Our eyes close, we can't hear anymore. In fact, people can come around us and steal things and so we don't know what's happening. Or things can go on and we don't hear it. We don't smell anymore. That's why people die in these fires out of smoke inhalation, because they don't smell it until it's too late. So everything physically shuts down. And then we find ourselves, now it's interesting, one more thing. They've done all kinds of research on sleep. And so they, as you know, have these medical equipment, especially all those out there that are part of the medical community. They're watching this. And they measure brain waves. And of course, they can see that during the day when things become more intense and so forth and so on, our brain waves really fluctuate. Now, so what they've done is they've measured as we're going down into our sleep, into the dream state. Slowly but surely, as the senses turn off, the brain waves go down. Go further and further and further until finally, boom, we hit that place where the deep dream state is, and there's more brain activity goes on than when we're awake. Now, of course, anything that science can't understand, they call it a paradox. A paradox. Anyway, that's a paradox. But what the elder told me was happening down there, and why that brain activity, says, think about it. In your dreams, you travel sometimes places without legs. We speak to others without words. We see things without eyes. It's not some television screen that goes up in the back of your head and your eyeballs turn back. We see things without eyes. We travel places without legs. We receive songs in our dreams. We receive teachings in our dreams. We see loved ones from the spiritual world in our dreams. And sometimes we dream tonight what will happen tomorrow or 10 years from now. That's, might say, Nagri, that's the soul. That's that part that water can't wet, wind can't dry, a knife can't cut. It's that part of us when it comes time for us to go back to Mother Earth, the physical part. That spiritual part just steps up. It's that soul part of our spiritual part of us. Okay? Now, we have a whole program to train about how to develop love, unity, and compassion in the workplace. But the question is, what does that mean? What does spiritual look like? And so we created this as part of this other workshop. So these are the things. Is it trustworthy? Does it create unity? Does it maintain dignity? Are the intentions pure? Is it just? Is it done in a spirit of service? Does it show humility? So here's a way, again, to begin to share in our communities. So what we're talking about is spiritual. What does that mean? And how is it reflected?
Right now we're we're developing a healing center, a program within the institution. And I came about this as I was going through I thought this is going to be a good measure, as we progress in coming together and bringing our young Aboriginal men together to heal, is to put them to this, each and every one of the policies and procedures that are going to guide us, is to put them questions in. And when we do in program, each and every one has to go through a program that comes into the institution, and that's the questions they ask themselves when they make a decision. So this is in developing a program or service.
Wonderful. Now, this morals and ethics, of course, we've been speaking about that, throughout the presentation. I won't go too far into that other than to say, that really we have to have a moral foundation for ourselves and those that want to make changes in our communities and want to make changes in ourselves. We can't base our lives in lies. We can't base our lives in disrespect. We can't base our lives in jealousy. Now, jealousy is one that really killing us. Boy, that's a tough one. It's kind of like, and of course we all know about the crab thing about, anybody tries to get out and the crab's pulled back and all that. But jealousy is one. That's where we have to understand the honor of one is the honor of all. And somebody does something, we honor. Honor is so important in our cultures. My father wrote a beautiful, I just happened to run into this thing about how we love to honor people. Because that uplifts people, to honor them. So the same way we have to have a foundation of good values.
One of the things that I shared with you that throughout my young life, I was abused 15 times sexually, like 15 different people. And when I first started out doing my work on myself and then in the community, one of the things that Phil said is we can never leave anyone out of the circle. Everyone deserves a chance to stand in the circle. And in ceremony, I've been sun dancing, I told you, for 27 years. We went to a community and they said nobody that sexually abused anybody is allowed to come into our community or this, but that's what we say, nobody gets left out of the circle, because all of these people are our relatives, whether they be our grandmas or our grandpas, our aunties, our uncles, our brothers, our sisters. Each and every person deserves to be part of the circle.
Yes, absolutely. Now, these next slides, we're going to slide through them. Obviously, we're going to slide through them. But what we did was consulted with communities all over Canada, and some from the United States, and we asked, what are the qualities of a principle-centered leader? And the first thing everybody agreed with is somebody who is spiritually centered, actively in relationship with the Creator. Another one was believes in the people's capacity to heal and development, shows that belief in the way they work with people. So what I'll do is just share that, and you'll get a chance to have that as part of the package they get, right? Mm-hmm. Anything you want to comment on these principles of leadership, Sister?
I really, we worked with a youth program. We had a youth conference, and I really think these principles are really important for our young leaders to strive towards, but also to, when we're choosing our leaders, whether it be a leader in our family, whether it be a leader in our community or organization, our country, that we really need to go by these principles in choosing a leader, and have a voice in that, and it's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Of course, learning is really at the core of healing and development, learning how to live in new ways. And for myself, I can say it at 73 winters, this really, to me, learning is even more exciting. Maybe it's because I'm forgetting things and then I'm learning them, relearning them, and then I'm thinking I really know them because I already learned them, but I didn't know them anymore. Anyway, learning is important to me.
My mom always says, use it or lose it. So you have to keep my mom's 74. And
Good, I'm glad you have some encouragement.
Yeah, she's still learning. Exercising your brain.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, coming up, sustainability. And I love the way the Kuna language calls it. They talk about not sustainable development, they talk about harmonious development. Harmonious development. But sustainability, whenever we you might say, begin to, like we're doing right now on Mother Earth, we're not living on the interest of Mother Earth anymore. We're living on the capital of Mother Earth anymore. We're literally destroying her. When we are sustainable, it means we can keep going. Harmonious means that we're in harmony with our Mother Earth and all life. And we only take what we need. And we ensure we don't cause what's happening today. My son is at Earl Marriott High School, and he's the president of the Aboriginal Club there. And they're doing an incredible project on salmon, on the Salmon Nation. And of course, people don't realize, I certainly didn't realize that he instructed me, that the Salmon Nation extended clear up to Alaska, clear down to Baja California. We're talking about such huge amounts. Of course, were different salmon relatives. They were swimming clear up these gravel beds, clear into the interior of the West Coast. I mean, clear up these streams, and of course, they go up there and they spawn. Today, this is going to be a hard one to grasp. Probably 90% of all the natural salmon have been, up to 95, in some places eliminated, have been eliminated. By natural salmon, I'm talking about those that actually get up to those gravel beds and spawn. Not the ones that are put into a bucket, where salmon eggs and semen and so forth are mixed around, and then all of a sudden we have, salmon. Because those wild salmon, those natural salmon, they have to fight up that river. It gives them strength, fight up that river, they get up that gravel bed. So you see, they're really looking at what do we need to do to bring back the Salmon Nation, which just was truly the buffalo of the West Coast. My dad came here from Haskell Indian School back in Lawrence, Kansas in 1930. I think he hitchhiked back from Kansas, and he ended up in Pendleton, Oregon, the Umatilla Reservation with his good roommate, Boots LaCourse. When he got there, he saw how the salmon played such a powerful role. And he said, son, I realized the salmon are their buffalo. And so it's so important that we look at these issues and what's happening, and we be sure to come back to a sustainable, harmonious process of development. Sister?
This one, move to the positive on the next principle. In my own development, I needed to change my thoughts. And when I smudge, I say I smudge my mind to remind me to think only good thoughts. and of course I'm a human being, so I will judge and criticize in my mind. So I try to change it to a prayer. I change that thought to a prayer. If I'm judging or criticizing somebody, I'll pray for them. I think it's really important that we continue to do that. We change our thoughts. And when we're working with the men in the institution, I always share with them. I open with my bundle and I talk about that, the importance. Our program is all behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. And it talks about changing that thought and giving tools to change that thought to the positive. I think it's really important.
Yes. And I think this one, you share, sister, is the one that really moves us forward. And to the point also, there's a teaching that I really believe in that says, if a person has 10 bad qualities and one good one, look at the good. Because that's how you're going to be able to help that goodness expand. If a person has 10 good qualities and one bad one, look at the good. I mean, rather than always looking, trying to find out, what's negative, so we can do a little more gossiping and backbiting or something like that. But solving the critical problems in our lives and communities is best approached by visualizing and moving into the positive alternative we wish to create, and by building on the strengths we already have, rather than giving away our energy fighting the negative. And so it's so important because that can pull us off. And, like our elders tell us, if nobody ever criticizes you, you must not be doing anything. Because no good deed goes unpunished. No, I'm not joking. Sometimes I can even feel like that. Okay. No, I love this one. I loved the one before, and I love them all.
I got to comment one more on the
please.
One before. Let's talk about, I worked, developed a child and family agency in my community, and our children, when they get into care, when they come of age, they can go back and get their records, and it's all the negative things that they've experienced in their life. So part of our development was to make sure that we're putting in all of the positive things that they've done and the things that we've seen. Not only that, when the young men come into the prison, part of my job, I'm called Elder Cultural Spiritual Advisor. We do an elders review on them, and that's what I do, is I draw out all the positive things, all their progress that they've made, from being a hurt child to what they are today, and all their strengths. And I think it's really important when we're doing that work.
Yes. Well, this principle 16th principle, be the change you want to see. Of course, this as well has been seen by spiritual change agents everywhere in the world. Mahatma Gandhi said something identical to this: be the change you want to see. And I know elders have shared with me, no one has a right to pierce somebody in a Sundance unless they've been pierced. Nobody has a right to put somebody up to fast for 4 days and 4 nights with no food and water unless you've done it. You mentioned this earlier. And I think that if that the most powerful impacts in our children's life, the most powerful impact in the community's life, is how we live our daily life, and how we are to others, and how we walk. That's how you see the change. And there's certain energies when we're in that state that just kind of transfer to one another. So it's so important that we walk our talk, so to speak. Any more other ways to frame that, sister?
Personally, to me, I value my sobriety, being clean and sober. It's very important. I have many nieces and nephews that are, some of them are just born, 2 or 3 years old. They watch everything you do, everything you say, and that's how they learn. So it's really important to be the change you want to see. Later in our Sundance, our young girls that are coming in, the young women that are dancing, they watch you. You're always being watched, and so it's really important to be the change you want to see.
Yes. In fact, I really enjoyed a post that my Toshka Sundance Reuben George made the other day. Maybe you probably saw it too. He was celebrating his date of sobriety. It was 23 years. And he was saying, it might have been more, but up there. He said, my children have never once, he had a picture of he and his children, have never once seen me drunk or using alcohol. Now that is something, is a great thing. Because, if others see us doing it, then they say, well, if they're doing it, why couldn't I do it? Now, that doesn't mean we're on a temperance campaign. Meaning that there's some relatives that can have a couple glasses of wine, never bothers them. But there's those, you don't want to give me a bunch of that stuff. Anyway, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to having some questions.
Yeah, right on time. So a few people had to excuse themselves, and thank you for the session, and are really happy with some of the things they learned today. So now, if any of you would like to share some questions, I know some of you asked questions throughout. I saw that some of those questions might have already been answered, but if they haven't, or if you have new questions, please use the chat box right now. Rather than the Q&A, please don't use the Q&A, use the chat function and ask away. Give a minute to type here.
I'm amazed by all this technology. Amazed.
We had one person earlier, a recent question. They said, would you recommend ways that those of us living in the secular world might take this to our local communities?
Like I said, when I'm not only developing myself and helping with my family, I use these principles, but if I'm developing curriculum, if I'm developing programs, if I'm developing organizations, I use these principles. It's always something to go back on. When I've had problems, I'll come to Phil and he'll remind me of the principle. And then as soon as he says it, I know, okay, this is how I'm going to, and believe me, there's been many problems in my work in development. And if I go back to these principles, it helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased as well. These principles are being used by a lot of international organizations now as guiding principles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what the elders were talking about. These natural laws, they operate no matter where you are in Mother Earth, no matter what color you are as a human being, male, female, whatever, they work. As well, I just want to share this sacred tree as we developed this in 1985. And we didn't get into how each person does ceremony, but we got to what are the core values as we saw them. And this has been shared now in how many different languages in Braille and so forth and so on. So this would be also, I think, a good resource. And as well, we'll be sending along through the resources from here a lot of different materials that are for you to utilize. Like that's the Spanish one, and here's the French one. And there's a few other languages. So there'll be a lot of resources available. Also, you can always also get a lot of resources off our website, fwii.net. That's all being included. You have that in your resources.
We have one question that came through, and a few comments and thank yous and things. I'll read them as well. But one thing I struggle with, they say, is understanding how to be gentle when sharing knowledge. Like a lot of conversations about intellectual property and non-Indigenous teaching our ways. Ownership causes disharmony, in quotes. Can we read that again?
Yeah, read it one more time.
Yeah. So, understanding how to be gentle when sharing knowledge, and specifically about intellectual property and non-Indigenous teachings.
Okay.
Or non-Indigenous people teaching our ways.
Right, on non-Indigenous people there in the way. Okay. Well, I can look back. This is, I'm sure you've heard the story back. In my younger days, I get a little emotional. And I'd gone back to New York and to attend this. I was invited to attend this big kind of gathering at a retreat place I'd gone to a number of times, and I was one of the only Aboriginal people there, only First Nation person there, Indigenous person there, and it was about 500 people there. And then somebody would call you up, and you'd stand up and kind of state your feelings. And so of course I was very anxious because I felt all these feelings were being brought up by being in this fine environment. So finally I was called. Phil, what do you want? And I stood up and I said, I want to see my people free! And bam! I'm going to do it because I'm probably governing. And I just really going to get carried away. And this beautiful, beautiful woman, her name's Gurumai, she said, Phil, it sounds like you're angry. I said, yes, and it's true. Saying that I want my people free, right? And she said this to me, she says, Phil, you have to learn to make the truth sweet so it'll touch the hearts of the people. If your truth is angry, if your truth is judgmental, if your truth is revengeful, it'll never touch the heart of the person to change it, because their feelings will come up to block that what you're saying, you're hurt. So, it's not easy to do on some of these subjects. But, I think we have to all understand that all of us, in a way, including myself, in certain areas of learning, we're children. I'm learning this digital technology. Last night, my son, I couldn't figure this thing out. I called my son, he's 17. He came in, he had it fixed like that. Everybody has something to contribute. Now, this whole area of appropriation of Indigenous cultures and so forth by people outside the culture, there's a lot of dimensions to this, I think, that we really need to have a really great discussion on. It's very interesting. My wife's from Thailand. I met her there in 1990 when I was going there to do a evaluation of a Royal Thai government UNICEF project in northern Thailand, and she was our consultant and our translator in the different languages for us. And it's so interesting, in Thailand, they were never colonized. One of the few places, and the other place I've been that was never colonized was Bhutan. And it was so interesting to find in both those places what it's like when you meet a people who weren't colonized. And they just, I don't care who you talk to, they were happy to be who they were. And if somebody had come and wanted to learn about their culture, they felt, because it hadn't been taken, it hadn't been colonized, they'd love to share. They felt it was a great, great love and respect that people were coming to them to learn. And they even became abbots in very high positions within the Buddhist tradition. Now, at the same time, what I noticed, though, is that you really, really needed to understand and really go by the guidance of those elders or those spiritual leaders of how to do that. And I think right now, it's so important that we have so much to share that the human family needs right now. We are in a rough condition. And so, and we also have to realize that some of the relatives have had their cultures completely destroyed, and they're seeking out something to ground them. And so, I would say that we need to be able to find a way together so that we can really, on one hand, be able to share the good things we have, but at the same time have those respected and not taken, you might say, and then somebody else takes and uses them, and you might say exploits them. That's one of the discussions, I think, one of the key discussion that has to go forward. And I think it's going to take more time. I mean, this question's good, but it'll take a lot of discussion because it's happening everywhere.
We had a couple people comment on the piece about anger and saying the truth can be very hot, and the bigger the fire, the further away from it people must stand. And then they had someone earlier on a previous comment that you made that related to the same thing. Said, but if we overlook the bad qualities of the wolf in favor of the good ones, we will have an empty hen house.
That's good. Yeah, it's true. We have to walk the mystical, spiritual path with practical feet. So any one of these principles, you have to, that's why they're principles, because you have to apply them in different contexts. And how you apply them is going to be a little bit different in different situations. So we also, I mean, this is not like a recipe book. We put a list and this list. These are guiding principles. So you yourself have to each of us, take and realize that we, as sacred beings, have the capacity to really know our own selves through our own independent investigation of truth, the path we need to take.
On that note, we don't have any more questions, but we had lots of big thank yous. One of them came from Haida Gwaii. Hawan, thank you for the presentation. Someone is hoping to begin a women's group to work on role modeling, and they want to bring those principles to that group. The knowledge you shared is truly a gift, and we really appreciate it. Very enriching. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
And I do want to share that anything we produced, because we have a lot of studies, like at the time of disclosure, what do we do? Ending violence in our communities. All these different things we've developed, we want to share. And share freely, because they were given to us freely. We want to share because, I mean, really, when you get to be 73, you realize, I used to be 6 feet tall. No. But you realize, we've got such a short time. This life is so short. We want to leave behind, when we leave, the best we can for those coming after us, so they don't have to go through the same things we've gone through. So I expect my son and you, I've been a little bit of a teacher, I expect you to go way beyond me. I don't expect you at 73 wanting to see this. Of course, you'll still have dark hair. But it's been a great one.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Davina.
Yes, we also want to thank the team, UBCLC team, Davina Ridley, who has helped behind the scenes here, Javier Rivera, who is a WorkLearn student and who's done a lot of great work as well, Stefan Mladenovic, who came in earlier to help with tech support, David Anderson at eHealth and FNHA. Again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.